Since our last school assembly, we lost another student. Our community is grieving the loss of a dear friend, teammate, and classmate. We miss Chris greatly. Now more than ever, we need to continue the work we started last year. At its core, the hashtag whyyoumatter campaign is about awareness. We need to be aware that we are more connected to one another than we realize. We need to be aware of mental health issues we all face. We need to be aware of each other and empathetic of our differences. If you notice a friend or a classmate is struggling, reach out and make one of us aware. We are here to help.
Now, please welcome to the stage Mr. Lumen Strong.
How do you measure your life? How do you know if your life has been a success? There's no test for that, is there? We have tests for everything else in life. How fast is an athlete? You got the 40-yard dash. Are you college ready? It's a SAT, right? How are you musically? We have the first chair. So we have questions for everything. But how do you measure a life? Well, measuring a portion of a life is not so hard. Let's take a day, for example. You come home after a day at school and practice and sit down for dinner with your parents, and they say, honey, how was your day? And you think for a minute about some of the significant events of the day. Let's see, you had pizza for lunch, you got an A in a test, and you got asked out for prom. It's a good day, right? On the other hand, some other days, you stepped in a mud puddle, you missed the bus, and your phone cracked. Oh, that's a bad day. Measuring a year, that's a little more problematic, because now you have 365 days back to back to back to think about. All the things, the people, events that happen, 12 months. How do you do that? Well, we weigh the good months, we weigh the bad months, and everything in between, apply some emotion, and we have some sort of assessment. It's a little shadier math. But a lifetime, how do you measure that? Imagine that you're 80 years old, lying on your deathbed. Your brain will necessarily, automatically look back and ask a question. How was my life? Did I live it well? We don't have a test for that. So how do you do that? It's impossible, right? No, it's not impossible. It's demanding. It's difficult. How do you do that? Well, you have to go through and think about how you live your life. You have to think through, and it involves something very simple. It involves questions. A life well lived is one that asks and answers questions throughout the life. Author Dr. Randy Carlson calls questions the stuff of life. And you can see why he says that. Questions are there throughout every hour of every day of our life. For example, think about this. What's the first thing that happens when you wake up in the morning? The alarm goes off. A question, right? What time is it? Some of you might ask, what day is it? Earlier this year, is it a snow day? The barrage of questions goes on throughout the day. Where's my backpack, Mom? What's for breakfast? Do we have a quiz today? Is that a sub? Does she like me? She doesn't like me. What's for dinner? What's on TV tonight? These questions go on and on and on, and these questions are perfect for a day. They're quick, they're simple, they're easy to answer, and they give you what you need. But they're superficial, they're shallow. These are not the questions that you want to use to measure your life. For you see, mundane questions produce mundane lives. If you live only in the superficial, your lives are in danger of becoming superficial. John Sawatsky, an ESPN interview coach, calls a good question this. He says they're precise instruments. And the picture here is of a medical scalpel, if you can imagine a scalpel. A scalpel cuts you deep. It opens you up. It reveals what's underneath there. That's what a good question does. Now, when you are 80 years old, looking back on your life, you want a precise instrument. You want an instrument that will reveal what's underneath there. An instrument that will bring to surface what your life was all about. The problem is, Where do you find those questions? These are rare jewels. They're not dime store variety questions. Because quite frankly, for most of us, it's hard to ask those questions. It takes time, it takes energy to think about these questions, and sometimes we don't like the answers either. So where do you find those? I believe the best place to find those is from someone who's lived decades, 70, 80, 90 years of life, and now they're at the edge of their life. They're facing death. That person has a unique perspective on life that we don't. They see death coming and they know what life was all about. They know the value of life. They know what's truly important. Now, I was privileged to have that exact same conversation with somebody, and it's changed my life to listen to that person. But I wish that conversation never happened. Because you see, that person was my father. My father was, to the casual observer, an ordinary, average man. Nothing special about him. Grew up in a suburb of Chicago, blue collar, 2 kids and a dog. Never wrote a book, never made $1 million, never built a bridge, never led a brigade into battle. Well, here he is, at the age of 18, sitting where some of you are right now. If I can get to that slide. There he is. College ready, senior, 1954, in case you're wondering about the style. 9 years later, he marries my mother. If I can get to that slide too. There we go. Age of 27. A quick blink later, he's celebrating 53 years of marriage. And here, I can go back. Well, here he is, 53 years of marriage. Can we go back? There we go. There it is. Okay, thank you. Again, to the casual observer, there's nothing special about this man. And yet, if you peel back the layers, there's something extraordinary about this man and the way he lived his life. For you see, he didn't settle for the superficial daily questions as he went through life. He faced the difficult questions every day, and I think that made all the difference. This story starts about 2 years ago, over Christmas break. As he was nearing 80 years old, he had some back pain, and nothing unusual for an 80-year-old man, right? After a couple days, he decided it was just a little bit too much, and so he wanted to go to the ER to get some meds for that. And so he did exactly that. No one was thinking much about it. So you can imagine my surprise when the next morning my mother calls and says, honey, I have to tell you something. It wasn't back pain, it was acute leukemia, and your dad has exactly 2 weeks left to live. Of course, when you get news like that, your brain can't catch up to the reality of it. You feel like you're in some sort of bad movie that should end, but it doesn't. And so while my mind was still reeling, my mother says, and I need you to go to the hospital to pick him up, to bring him home to die. Essentially his last car ride home. And so on the car ride there, my mind was still reeling with this news. And of course, my curiosity was piquing. I knew how I was handling the news, not well, but I wasn't the one facing death. My dad wasn't, so I knew I wanted to ask him, Dad, how are you handling this news? And so I got to the hospital and was packing up his bags, helping him out, and finally I asked exactly that. Dad, you're gonna die. How are you processing this? And I was prepared for a few answers. I was prepared for anger, it's justifiable, emotions, denial, maybe tears. That's not what I got. He took a deep breath and actually smiled and said this: who am I, and what's the big picture? When told I have just weeks left to live, why am I not agitated? I've answered those questions, and I know my eternity. Did you get that significance? Let's back up for a minute here. Here's the context. A man, my dad, was just told by one of the leading cancer doctors at a hospital, sir, you have 14 days left. There's no second opinion. There's no recourse. This is real. You will be in the ground within 3 weeks. That's a serious thing to digest. And my dad's response was to celebrate. He smiles. He says, I have fought the good fight. I have run the race. I'm not looking in the rearview mirror. I'm looking ahead. There's no regrets or no remorse. I have answered the questions. Did you catch that? That is not an average response to death. That is an extraordinary response to death. Now, I want that for myself and I want that for you. How did he get there is my question. Well, it goes back to what we said earlier. It's a simple thing. He asked two questions that were precise instruments that cut him open to the core, and he examined himself every day to the point where when he got to this question of death, he was ready. Well, let's look at them briefly here. Question number one, who am I? It seems like an easy question, maybe a superficial one, but it's not. It's much more than your name. It's your duties and responsibilities, but it's your skills, your talents, your passions. It's asking you, it's begging you to say, what makes you come alive? Dr. Richard Allen Farmer, one of my favorite preachers down in Texas, told his congregation once, you got to chase down your passion in life. We have a very narrow strand of what we see as we go through the day. We wake up at the same time, get the same granola bar out of the cupboard, take the same way to school, do the same things at school, come home, we eat the same sort of foods for dinner, watch the same Netflix shows, and then we do it all over again, and we miss this grander beauty of the world around us. There are bigger things than you happening that you could be a part of, that you can contribute to. What is your place in history? What are the beautiful, grand things around you that you could see? Ask the question, and you'll find out. Now, CHS, there's no one that can answer these two questions for you except you. I'm convinced that my dad asked and answered these questions in some form throughout most of his life. Now, look at me, CHS, look at this. Your life is precious. Every hour of every day is a sweet gift, and it goes by so quickly. I don't want you to spend your time wading in the shallow kiddie pools of superficial questions. I want you to dive into the deep waters of some of these precise instrument questions so that one day when you're 80 years old and a doctor gives you a phone call that you didn't really want to hear, you'll be able to smile and say, I've lived my life well. I have answered my questions. Thank you.
In life, I want to be fun and kind. I want people to enjoy my presence and have fun, but also see me as someone they can come to as a friend and someone who's gentle and grateful for all of those around them. And I think everyone should strive to be this way in different ways.
Every day I wake up knowing that I'm not the one facing problems.
I've noticed lately that people like smiles, and I love smiling, and it might not be the prettiest because of my braces, but you're just gonna have to embrace that one. But I like smiling, and it makes people happy, it makes me happy, and it just makes me feel good. And also, I feel like I have a purpose in this world because I tell great puns. They're just really, really great. And, you know, they're great.
My purpose is to help others face challenges that I have overcome in the past.
My purpose in life is to be there for others when they feel like they have no one else to go to.
One of my purposes waking up in the morning is to prove people wrong and show people that you can do what others think that you can't do.
And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Mark Mundros.
Everyone in life seeks true love. We desire for someone to sacrifice for us. We desire to be accepted, recognized, and forgiven. 12 years ago, I was sitting where you are now. I was told to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and I had no idea. People would ask, and I would answer with a shoulder shrug and a simple, I don't know. And from this response, everyone would say the same thing. Well, what do you love? Just do what makes you happy. So many people would ask me this question, I began just making up jobs, just so I didn't have to hear those two phrases anymore. Just, what do you love? Do what makes you happy. I heard them so much, I combined these two phrases and I started to link happiness with love. Anything that made me happy, I automatically loved. But what I quickly learned is that these two concepts, happiness and love, don't always go together. I used to love McDonald's. There's something about getting a double cheeseburger for $1 that would really excite me. When I was in high school, a double cheeseburger was 2 patties, 2 slices of cheese on a bun for $1. Not $1.49 like it is now. It was a steal, I thought. And then a small fry with that, another $1. Yeah. Tasted good. But what I started to realize is that if I continued to eat this food, it'd cause heart disease, cholesterol blockage, maybe obesity. Maybe in a few years, I'd be in a hospital getting ready for intensive surgery because my arteries are clogged from eating McDonald's. And that's when I realized, then would I still feel happy? Then would I still love McDonald's? I learned this type of love, the love of temporary happiness, always ends in disappointment. And this doesn't just happen with the long-term effects of McDonald's, but it happens with the jobs we get, the relationships we're in, the friendships we have, the sports we play. Life and love are more than temporary emotions, temporary highs. And if we're not careful, we may pursue desires which only satisfy our temporary self. Sex, drugs, alcohol, Instagram likes, retweets, winning. If used incorrectly, our temporary happiness fades until we seek more, only to be more disappointed and more damaged. I found when I gave up my desire for temporary happiness, what I found was eternal joy. True love lasts forever. It always exists. It never reduces. It is always accountable. But here's the catch. You ready for it? True love is not an emotion. Unlike society's definition, true love is a decision and an action. One of the greatest examples of true love is when a 2-month-old child wakes up for the 5th time in the night, and the mother still gets up and comforts that child. The mother does not wake up with happiness or excited feelings or butterflies in the stomach. If anything, there's annoyance. There's frustration. There's a feeling of, I just want to get more than the 3 hours of sleep that I got the night before. But against her feelings, against her emotion, she makes a decision and takes action to love her child. You know what I wish someone would have told me when I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life? I wish they would have just said, do what's right. I fully believe we all have a moral compass, something from within us which tells us when we lie, it's not okay. When we're selfish, we've made a mistake. When we hurt others, we should stop. Sometimes we're able to ignore this moral compass enough until it is so dull we can't even tell it's there. But here's the beauty. If we just make the choice to listen, it always appears. One of the greatest things about true love, and the worst things about true love, is that it is a choice. I got engaged about 5 months ago, and it wouldn't have been much of an engagement if when I proposed to my fiancée, I demanded that she say yes. It wouldn't have been much of a relationship if I told her what to do and where to live and how to speak and what to say. This would be abuse. This would be torture. This would be enslavement, and this would be far from a choice. But true love always gives us the decision to choose. With the decision, the implication of true loves are on one hand miraculous, but on the other hand devastating. We're constantly able to decide whether we want to follow our love in unison or just create our own rules. It's like an orchestra where all the members have the choice to play this beautiful harmony, or we can make up our own music and it could be complete chaos. Sure, the instruments might look different, they might sound different, they might systematically be different, but they can still join in to create the beautiful melody if they selflessly sacrifice their personal recognition for the group. The greatest love anyone could ever show would be to sacrifice our own recognition, our own power, and even our own happiness to do what is right. This means sacrificing not only for the things that give us complete happiness, but also for the things that don't. It's really easy to sacrifice for our friends.
Passions, like it's the last bus of the night. You get that picture in your head? You can't chase down your passions if you haven't asked the questions and found out what it was. Ask that question, find it out, and chase that bus down. Question number 2. What's the big picture? Now this one's convicting, I think, because most of us do the same thing in life. We have a very narrow strand of what we see as we go through the day. We wake up at the same time, get the same granola bar out of the cupboard, take the same way to school, do the same things at school, come home, we eat the same sort of foods for dinner, watch the same Netflix shows, and then we do it all over again, and we miss this grander beauty of the world around us. There are bigger things than you happening that you could be a part of, that you can contribute to. What is your place in history? What are the beautiful, grand things around you that you could see? Ask the question, and you'll find out. Now, CHS, there's no one that can answer these 2 questions for you except you. I'm convinced that my dad asked and answered these questions in some form throughout most of his life. Now, look at me, CHS, look at this. Your life is precious. Every hour of every day is a sweet gift, and it goes by so quickly. I don't want you to spend your time wading in the shallow kiddie pools of superficial questions. I want you to dive into the deep waters of some of these precise instrument questions so that one day when you're 80 years old and a doctor gives you a phone call that you didn't really want to hear, you'll be able to smile and say, I've lived my life well. I have answered my questions. Thank you.
In life, I want to be fun and kind. I want people to enjoy my presence and have fun, but also see me as someone they can come to as a friend and someone who's gentle and grateful for all of those around them. And I think everyone should strive to be this way in different ways.
Every day I wake up knowing that I'm not the one facing problems.
I've noticed lately that people like smiles, and I love smiling, and it might not be the prettiest because of my verses, but you're just going to have to embrace that one. But I like smiling, and it makes people happy, it makes me happy, and it makes me feel good. And also, I feel like I have a purpose in this world because I tell great puns. They're just really, really great. And, you know, they're great.
My purpose is to help others face challenges that I have overcome in the past.
My purpose in life is to be there for others when they feel like they have no one else to go to.
One of my purposes waking up in the morning is to prove people wrong and show people that you can do what others think that you can't do.
And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Mark Mundros.
Everyone in life seeks true love. We desire for someone to sacrifice for us. We desire to be accepted, recognized, and forgiven. 12 years ago, I was sitting where you are now. I was told to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and I had no idea. People would ask, and I would answer with a shoulder shrug and a simple, I don't know. And from this response, everyone would say the same thing. Well, what do you love? Just do what makes you happy. So many people would ask me this question, I began just making up jobs just so I didn't have to hear those two phrases anymore. Just, what do you love? Do what makes you happy. I heard them so much I combined these two phrases and I started to link happiness with love. Anything that made me happy, I automatically loved. But what I quickly learned is that these two concepts, happiness and love, don't always go together. I used to love McDonald's. There's something about getting a double cheeseburger for $1 that would really excite me. When I was in high school, a double cheeseburger was 2 patties, 2 slices of cheese on a bun, for $1. Not $1.49 like it is now. It was a steal, I thought. And then a small fry with that, another $1. Yeah. Tasted good. But what I started to realize is that if I continued to eat this food, it'd cause heart disease, cholesterol blockage, maybe obesity. Maybe in a few years, I'd be in a hospital getting ready for intensive surgery because my arteries are clogged from eating McDonald's. And that's when I realized, then would I still feel happy? Then would I still love McDonald's? I learned this type of love, the love of temporary happiness, always ends in disappointment. And this doesn't just happen with the long-term effects of McDonald's, but it happens with the jobs we get, the relationships we're in, the friendships we have, the sports we play. Life and love are more than temporary emotions, temporary highs. And if we're not careful, we may pursue desires which only satisfy our temporary self. Sex, drugs, alcohol, Instagram likes, retweets, winning. If used incorrectly, our temporary happiness fades until we seek more, only to be more disappointed and more damaged. I found when I gave up my desire for temporary happiness, what I found was eternal joy. True love lasts forever. It always exists. It never reduces. It is always accountable. But here's the catch. You ready for it? True love is not an emotion. Unlike society's definition, true love is a decision and an action. One of the greatest examples of true love is when a 2-month-old child wakes up for the 5th time in the night, and the mother still gets up and comforts that child. The mother does not wake up with happiness or excited feelings or butterflies in the stomach. If anything, there's annoyance. There's frustration. There's a feeling of, I just want to get more than the 3 hours of sleep that I got the night before. But against her feelings, against her emotion, she makes a decision and takes action to love her child. You know what I wish someone would have told me when I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life? I wish they would have just said, do what's right. I fully believe we all have a moral compass, something from within us which tells us when we lie, it's not okay. When we're selfish, we've made a mistake. When we hurt others, we should stop. Sometimes we're able to ignore this moral compass enough until it is so dull, we can't even tell it's there. But here's the beauty. If we just make the choice to listen, it always appears. One of the greatest things about true love, and the worst things about true love, is that it is a choice. I got engaged about 5 months ago, and it wouldn't have been much of an engagement if when I proposed to my fiancée, I demanded that she say yes. It wouldn't have been much of a relationship if I told her what to do and where to live and how to speak and what to say. This would be abuse. This would be torture. This would be enslavement, and this would be far from a choice. But true love always gives us the decision to choose. With the decision, the implication of true loves are on one hand miraculous, but on the other hand devastating. We're constantly able to decide whether we want to follow our love in unison or just create our own rules. It's like an orchestra where all the members have the choice to play this beautiful harmony. Or we can make up our own music and it could be complete chaos. Sure, the instruments might look different, they might sound different, they might systematically be different, but they can still join in to create the beautiful melody if they selflessly sacrifice their personal recognition for the group. The greatest love anyone could ever show would be to sacrifice our own recognition, our own power, and even our own happiness to do what is right. This means sacrificing not only for the things that give us complete happiness, but also for the things that don't. It's really easy to sacrifice. It's not so easy to sacrifice for our enemies. When I came to this realization, I understood true love does not always follow happiness. There will be times in my life where I don't want to sacrifice for others. And there will be definitely times in my life where I don't want to sacrifice for myself. I don't want to eat healthy or share my weaknesses or be vulnerable. These things don't always make me temporarily happy, but they do make me eternally whole. And the same is true, I believe, for our Creator. He does not give us choices because our choices will make Him happy. He does not allow us to choose because we will always choose correctly. He gives us the choice because it gives us the opportunity to love Him and everything that's created in return. I believe we are created out of true love. I believe we are created even knowing we would mess up. We would stray away from the harmonious path, and we would seek temporary passions. I believe even knowing we would do this and cause complete pain to ourselves, we were still created because our love is worth it. True love doesn't mean that we don't mess up. True love just means that we make the choice to never give up. The reason I am here is to share the truest form of love with everyone I encounter. And I share this love with the world because it is the only thing that has brought me full peace. For me to truly and physically and spiritually be one with myself, I must be one with all those who surround me. And this is why I choose to love you. Because I need you. And although I'm not perfect in my decisions and in my love, with your forgiveness, I will renew my attempt to fulfill them. Even if I don't agree with the decisions you make or the beliefs you have, it makes no difference. Please forgive me, for I forgive you. I love you. Thank you. Thanks.
You spoke.
Sorry.
What drives me is waking up every morning, working towards the same goal with my teammates, my classmates.
What keeps me going is my friends and my family, because even if I'm not living for myself, I know that I'm living for them and that they'll be there to support me and make me laugh.
The thing that drives me to get up in the morning is seeing room for change in our world and seeing people who don't feel like they have a voice and giving them a voice because they deserve it.
Connected community. That's what drives me. I've grown up in this town my entire life, where my family was only a few feet away at all times, where I have friends that I've grown up with and others that I've acquired along the way, and where I have a youth group that I've grown my faith with. These people have supported me over and over again, and what drives me is the fact that sometimes it's my turn to take care of them and to be there for them like they have been for me.
My why is to become a nurse so that every day I am given the opportunity to make a difference in someone's life by showing my patients compassion, kindness, and empathy.
The reason why I get up in the morning is because life's too short. Living life is about loving and laughing.
And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Adam Taylor.
Thanks. First, I think it's important to say thanks to all the people that have worked on Why You Matter, especially Miss Nar and Miss Gio. So today I wanted to start off by 7 things that you may not know about me. 7 things. Number 1, I'm a guy that loves being the first one in the Trinkley Road parking lot every morning. I kind of started doing this after seeing how early Mr. Helms would get here years ago. It bothers me greatly, causes me anxiety and frustration when Mr. French or whoever the faculty member is that drives the small white sedan. I think it's a new car. It bothers me when you guys beat me. Number 2, I took the ACT 3 times before I got an 18 to be eligible to play college athletics, but then made the dean's list after I returned to school and my playing days were over. I think this demonstrates how academically immature I was as a high school student. I'll say this, the 18 was super scored too. Number 3, I'm the first person from my family with an undergraduate degree and a master's degree. Number 4, I have a sister that has Down syndrome. She's absolutely the best person I've ever met. So thankful to have her as a sibling. She doesn't understand what fake is. She's real and full of love. Number 5, I love going to rock concerts and getting into the pit. Makes me feel alive. Thankful for my health when I get out of there, too. Number 6, I'm a father of 2 really cool kids. Very thankful. Very thankful. Obviously, I'm biased, but I'm thankful that they treat others the right way and they do what's right. Number 7, I got divorced in 2012. Didn't go on a date for 4 years. 4 years. I was bullied around the 4-year mark by Coach Bush and Coach B to go to online dating. I began dating a beautiful woman, and she has 4 beautiful kids. I'm very, very thankful for that. And thankful for those guys for bullying me a little bit. Okay, so when I was asked to speak today, I started thinking about times in my life where something happened that was life-altering, all because of taking a chance or a risk that I didn't even know I was taking at the time. Having said that, there are many ways to grow as a person. I believe we really generally grow when we risk the unknown, take a chance where failing is a real possibility, and we're forced to be uncomfortable. We're forced to work harder than we thought we could and willing to do anything to obtain a goal. So this is my story about risking failure and ultimately how some great things happened to me as a result. Keep in mind, baseball might be my vehicle to my story, but the message applies to any and all risks that we are faced with when we have a goal. Graduated from Chelsea High School in 1992. Man, I miss that hair. I don't know who just said it. No, it's not photoshopped. Just kidding. The fall of '92, after I graduated, in the fall, I attended Ferris State with an opportunity to play baseball. Check out that stash on that guy on the right. Great opportunity. I was fortunate enough to beat all those guys out and play almost every game my freshman year. But there's 2 things about my experience at Ferris. One, Big Rapids it's right in the heart of a snow belt. And baseball is played right now, college baseball. That shouldn't happen. It's terrible. The second thing is, after my first year there, I had a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to play at a Division I school. It bothered me that I was there. Thankful for the opportunity, but I was salty about it. It bothered me. So after my freshman year, going into the summer, toward the end of the summer, some family members and then some friends of theirs came into town. And the friends I had never met before, and when we took a trip to Cedar Point. Okay, we get to Cedar Point, kind of still meeting some of these friends that I'd never met before. We get there, the first ride that we're gonna wait for is the Magnum, right? That was years and years ago. I don't even know if that thing's still standing anymore. But if you've been to Cedar Point, you know that the lines are long. And I bet we stood there for an hour, and one of the friends of the family that I was standing next to ended up being a guy that played at the University of New Mexico, baseball. He's a pitcher. I never met this guy before, but he's with our group, standing there talking. As soon as he started talking about that, I'm like thinking, okay, this school's a Division I school. Now it's on. I'm hitting this guy with every question. Right, who's returning as far as catchers, because I caught the team, the facilities, how do I get a hold of the head coach? Just all this stuff, right? Some guy that happened to be in our group I'm standing next to for probably an hour in a line at Cedar Point. Random. So you fast forward to that fall, I had to go back to Ferris State, right? I had no choice. Yeah, I got this number from this random guy at Cedar Point that was along on this trip with us, but what am I going to do with it, right? So I go back to Ferris, I had no choice. Once we got there in the fall, in October, the administration, the president and the athletic director called a meeting and said that they were going to cut, due to Title IX, 4 or 5 programs, but baseball being one of them. So now I'm sitting in this seat listening to these people talk. Now I can't wait to get out of there because I am going to get on the phone. I am going to call the head coach, and that's what I did. I called the head coach of the University of New Mexico because it was, like I said, I wanted to give it a shot, a Division I opportunity. I was hoping that I could get that. I called the head coach. I visited, I don't know, a month after that. It was over Thanksgiving break. I called him. He said, yeah, come on out. It's over Thanksgiving. In January, well, actually, let me go back. The Thanksgiving trip, I'd never flown. I'd never been west to Jackson, Michigan. I'd never seen mountains. So as soon as we got there, I was in. Hey, I'm all in. January, I transferred. I'm out. But keep in mind, when I transfer and I get there, I don't know a single person on the team. I don't know who's picking me up from the airport. I don't know where I'm staying. I don't have any class schedule. I didn't know where I was going to live. And I didn't even know if I was going to make the team. I was just so consumed with risking it. Just any way possible. So you fast forward. I sat for 2.5 years. Had to sit due to a red shirt. I sat behind a guy that got drafted in front of me the year before. And the only time that I ever played was if we were getting killed or we were winning by a lot. Handcuffed to the bench, if you will. In spring of '96, I won the job after sitting for 2 years. Very fortunate. Won the job. At the end of that season, at the end of that spring season, I was drafted by the Cleveland Indians in the 23rd round. MLB draft. I played for 4 years with the Indians, was tendered a contract for my 5th year and walked from it. Came back here, graduated from EMU. All because I met a guy at Cedar Point. I don't know how that happened, but it did, and I'm very thankful for it. Please understand, this has very little to do with baseball. It has everything to do with having a goal, willing to do anything to achieve the goal, risking everything, and not knowing if it was going to work out in the end. The lessons I learned during those years are used daily in my life now, as a teacher, coach, dad, and as a friend and mentor. I put this up here. It's all right, go ahead. I put that up there because I would say that it's probably the best thing that anyone has ever sent Coach Bush and myself when Coach Bush was teaching advanced fitness, when we team taught it. This young man was an exchange student from Germany. Picture on the left is September, picture on the right is June. It's 10 months roughly. And you talk about taking a risk. New country, just like any other exchange student. New country, new students, different language, different classes, and then you're going to throw in a weight training class that obviously had never been in. The physical piece is easy to see, but the look in his face is the good stuff on the right. On the left, he's all but embarrassed of himself. On the right, you see a confident young man totally willing to take the next risk head on. This is one of the best things that's ever been sent to us. I have it hung up in my office, and he had no idea what he was getting into. He just blindly trusted and was willing to work harder than he ever had. You need to know this. Chelsea is a very special place to me. There are high standards all across the board here, from music, Company C, academics, athletics, and frankly, just how we do things here. As students, you shouldn't want it any other way, to be honest. So when asked, what is my why, I say this. I didn't get into teaching to get rich. I got into teaching because I'm a giver. I don't worry about when I'm going to get mine. I'm just committed to giving to you students in this place. Thank you very much. Don't be scared to risk failure.
I get up every morning thinking about the millions of women I'm going to help when I earn my degree.
You know, the reason I get up in the mornings every day is because I just want to make this world a more beautiful place to live. And the way I do that is by expressing myself, by bringing music to alive and putting dance to it and choreography. And, you know, I guess just trying to give people some hope and some, you know, ideas of love when I do it.
I wake up each morning wanting to give back. It is my greatest desire in life to give everything that's ever been given to me. Love, grace, and forgiveness, all of that. I want to be able to give that to someone and to change someone's life just as Christ has changed mine.
What gets me up in the morning is knowing that I have a little brother that looks up to me every day.
My why is probably making people laugh and feel better about themselves, or maybe just bring some light into the world. Because there's never enough jokes.
I wake up in the morning to encourage my sister to keep fighting her battle with cancer.
My purpose in life is to help all animals that are in need.
And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Miss Rachel Wismont.
Oh, it's good to kind of see you guys. I can't really see you. Except I have to start in the middle because I teach speech, so here I am in the middle. When I was 21, I found out that I was going to be interviewed for my dream job. That's right, I was going to be interviewed to be a teacher at Chelsea High School. Now, this interview process felt like it was a million steps long, and I thought it was going pretty well until one of the interviewers at the almost very end of the process told me that I should dress more professionally. Yeah, as you can imagine, it kind of like messed me up a lot. And I kept doubting myself and doubting what I was wearing. Even after I got the job, I kept obsessing over my clothes. Like, are my shoes okay? Is the skirt okay? What's everyone else gonna wear to parent-teacher conferences? Now, that worry over my clothes led to worry about everything else. I worried that at 21, I was too young to be a teacher. I worried that I was too weird. Like, I went to Renaissance festivals in costume, and I did African dance. Those things maybe didn't make me teachery enough to be here. So I tried to blend in. I bought a suit. I wore it on the major teacher occasions, like conferences and open house. And I didn't talk too much about some of those weird parts of my life. But as Maya Angelou says in her essay, Style, when we try to take another's mannerisms as our own, we end up looking as ridiculous as a robin with peacock feathers hastily stuck on. So for me, the suit was those peacock feathers. Maybe I didn't look ridiculous, but I felt ridiculous, and certainly not any more teachery. So I let myself out a little bit more. I talked about the Renaissance Festival at lunch. I told students that I did African dance. I even told my colleagues that I was going to spend a summer living in a van. To my surprise, it all went okay. I realized that who I am is okay. I still struggle with it, like everyone, but it's getting better, and life is so much better when I realize that who I am is okay. Once I realized that, that actually turned into my purpose. It's not enough for me to be okay with myself. I want to help other people be okay with themselves too. That's my why, and that's what I'll be covering today. I'm going to talk about how everything's okay, and even when it's not, everything's okay. So the first step to knowing that everything is okay is knowing that you're okay. You're perfect just the way you are, and you could use a little work. I know that seems like it's contradictory to be perfect and to need some work, but it's really accurate. It might help if you picture a baby. Say, my baby. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist having a giant picture of Sal on the screen. So this is Sal. He's 7 months old now, and he's perfect, right? How could a 7-month-old baby not be perfect? Well, he could use a little work. He spits up. He hasn't slept through the night in 7 months. He poops his pants. These things are not what we would consider perfect, right? And yet, he is perfect. He's exactly where he needs to be in his process. His process is unique to him and ever-changing. Eventually, I hope, he will stop pooping his pants. But when he does, he's still going to be perfect. He's just going to be working on the next thing in his life. Now, some babies are going to be potty trained before he is. Does that mean they're more perfect than Sal? Of course not. Everyone has their own process. Sal's process is unique to him, just like my process is unique to me, and your process is unique to you. It doesn't mean that anyone is any more perfect. Some people have mastered some skills while others are still working on it. It's okay. As long as we're working on ourselves and trying to be the best versions of us we can be, then we're perfect in our process. Now, this is difficult because we compare ourselves to other people. It's a natural thing. We do it in school, we do it in sports. I mean, heck, social media, we see the highlights of everybody's life, we see the filtered pictures, and it's easy to forget that everyone has struggles, and yet we all do. So we shouldn't compare ourselves to other people, even if it is easy, because it's really ridiculous when you think about it. It's kind of like comparing a tomato to a dodgeball. Yes, they're both red and round, but that's kind of it. And the more you think about it, it really doesn't make sense. That's like comparing ourselves to each other. We are all where we are in our process. We are all unique, and we just have to worry about being ourselves and being the best we can be. If my happiness is dependent on being better than someone else, I'm not going to be happy for very long, because there are always people better at me than some things. Here at school, there are teachers who are smarter than me, who are funnier than me, better speakers, better dressers, right? I don't have to look very far to find that, but that's okay, because we are all in our process. We're all perfect and could use a little work. Now, that being said, sometimes things aren't okay. Sometimes things suck. That's okay too. We don't have to be happy all the time. Sometimes we're sad or mad or frustrated. Sometimes we feel pain. That's okay too. How is pain okay? Well, if we remember that it's different from suffering. We can't always stop our pain, but we can learn how to ease our suffering. If I stub my toe, it's going to hurt. I'm going to feel that pain. But I'll only suffer if I beat myself up over it. I'll only suffer if I rage at the person who made me do it or get down on myself for being too clumsy. We can learn how to stop that reaction, that suffering. There's an idea I heard that might help with this. It says, when misfortune comes, 2 arrows fly our way. The first arrow is the difficulty itself. The second is our reaction to it. So the first arrow, that's the bad thing. That's when things are sucky, people are jerks, we stub our toes. We can't stop those things. But the second arrow is what eventually we can learn to address. We can learn how to stop that reaction. We can learn how to not beat ourselves up over little mistakes or big mistakes. We can learn not to compare ourselves to one another. We can learn not to replay whatever painful thing over and over again in our head. Now, that's not to say that reflection isn't important, because we all should reflect. If I keep stubbing my toe, then maybe I should reflect and walk more carefully. That's okay, that's not going to cause me suffering as long as I don't beat myself up over it. So how do we stop that second arrow? It's easier said than done, but there's 2 things that I do that help. First is I try to remember that it will pass. My feelings might be hurt, my pride might be hurt, I might be mad or sad, but those things will pass, even if they don't feel like they will. And then second, until they do pass, I need to remember that it's okay to feel those things. Often we hear and we tell ourselves that uncomfortable feelings are bad. So it's good to be happy and it's bad to be sad. But that's not how it is. Both of those feelings are natural and normal parts of life. It's okay to feel those uncomfortable things. So even when things aren't okay, they're okay. So to end, I'd like to go back to that example from earlier. When I was 21 and interviewing for this job, I was perfect just the way I was, and I could use a little work. Maybe I could have dressed more professionally, or maybe I just could have remembered that it was okay. I didn't have to beat myself up for it. If it happened now, I'd like to think that while that first arrow would still hit me, I would still be embarrassed and hurt if someone tells me I need to dress differently. Maybe I could stop that second arrow by remembering that it's okay. I know it's not easy to do, and I know it's not magical, and tomorrow morning we're not all going to wake up and just be like, oh, okay, everything's okay, all good. We all are in our process, and I still struggle. When I was working on this speech, actually, I cried because I was worried that it wasn't good enough. I know, the irony is not lost on me that my speech is about it's okay, and I was worried that it wasn't okay. But there you are. We are all in our process. What I do hope, though, is that maybe something I've said today will stick with you, and maybe that you can remember it and feel okay even when things aren't okay. Because, yes, you could use a little work. We all can. But you're perfect just the way you are. Thank you.
I'd like to bring our speakers back onto the stage, so please come back out. Ms. Wismont, Mr. Strong, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Moondros. Please give them a round of applause. Just a couple things. We do have one small video to play before we leave. It's very short. We want to make sure we end on the appropriate note. Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. Don't get off stage so quick. Come on back. A couple things. This is the second and last full assembly we're going to have with the Why You Matter campaign. We do have something planned for you on Monday. But I wanted to take this opportunity to take a moment and really thank the people that poured their heart and soul into this project this year, not only this year but last year. So I'd like to have Mrs. Nahr come up on stage. Gio, I know you can walk quickly. I want you up on stage, please. Mr. Murphy, I know Mr. Murphy is around. Come on up on stage. Liv, Jacqueline, Bennett, Booth, Rose, I want you guys up on stage. Get the recognition you deserve. So before we close today, there are a couple things that I wanted to share with you. Just one, as we think about the common themes that were talked about today, so things that personally resonated with me and hopefully they resonated with you, as I think of what Dr. Strong had to talk about today in terms of asking the essential questions and thinking about the bigger picture. And Coach Taylor, I think it's really important to know that it is okay to take healthy risks and to sometimes put a goal in front of yourself that you don't think you can achieve and then go after it with your hair on fire. And then as Mrs. Wismont talked about, we all need work. I mean, think about it. I mean, that is a very important message to hear, that everyone you see up here, including myself and everybody that's sitting out in the audience, we're imperfect, we need work, and that's okay to be yourself. And then Mr. Mundros' lesson is another one to really walk away. Hopefully you walk away and you know this, that everybody here on the stage, I shared it with you last time when we were here as a full school together, and all of your teachers and the people that are in this building and support staff members and secretaries, we love and we care about you. That's the reason why we continue to do the Why You Matter campaign. It's one of the reasons why we will continue to do the Why You Matter campaign next year. We are not moving away from this. It is important that we continue this work, and it's important that we continue to talk about it. So I want to also thank, on behalf of the crew, I want to thank each and every single one of you for your attention during these assemblies. Every time that I walk out of here, I am just so proud of how you handle yourselves at a full school assembly and how you treat one another. So thank you again, round of applause, and then we'll finish with a short video.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming today and being part of the #WhyYouMatter campaign. We wanted to take a minute now at the end to kind of talk about the purpose behind the campaign and what we're doing here. The campaign last year was really a public art project. It was a photography project, and it started here at Chelsea High School as a response to kind of heartache. And it had some amazing students and staff that made it possible, and we wanted to do something again for the students this year. You're a different group, and we wanted to be able to do something that brought the school together as a community. So that's where we got the speaker series from. We wanted to kind of take you out of that daily high school grind and take you out of your high school drama, your GPA, your Twitter feed, Snapchat. We just wanted to take you out of that for a second and have you think about yourself as a person and have you think about things that are greater than high school. And so that's why we had to have a purpose behind this, and that's why we asked you what your why is.
Right. So the speaker series today was about letting you see your teachers and letting them talk about their lives and how they got to where they are today. Because your teachers were just like you once. They all made it through high school. They all struggled. And it's important to understand that life is about the journey, not the destination. You're going to fall. You're going to get back up. And helping yourself and others to find your why will help you get back up on those tough days. So these teachers poured their hearts out to you. You saw them. You heard them. But know that they did this because they and we love you, we see you, and we hear you.
Thank you so much to everybody who made this possible. Students and staff who contributed to this, and the speakers that got up today and poured their souls out. So
we hope that you go back to your classrooms and that you have a chance to discuss this and to really think about what keeps you going and the important things in your life. And thank you for coming to us today. We really appreciate it.
Are you ready for the bloopers? Here we go.
But I definitely know. Oh, am I supposed to start talking? Okay.
Do I have to hang out in here until Gio's back? God, I don't know.
Oh my.
Bam!
Killed it!
Mic drop! Except I don't have one.
Track 2, tape 1.
Come on, Annie. You got this. You got this. This isn't that difficult. Okay.
That was perfect.
Yay! So, what's up, guys? It's my YouTube channel coming back at you. No.
Act 1, scene 1.
Dang it, I forgot to smile.